Picture it, Cincinnati, 1995. An 8-year-old kid was entering the walls of Guardiana Castle, ready to take on the forces of Runefaust, and ultimately fell the Dark Dragon, saving the entire kingdom in the process. The large-scale strategic battles between his forces, replete with mages, centaurs, samurai, and birdmen, and the imposing, terrifying, and powerful opposition were seriously unlike anything that he had ever experienced. The combat, storyline, and presentation opened his eyes to the beauty of role-playing in video games and would lead him down a path of consuming every RPG he could for the next 2 decades. And all this via his 3-year-old Sega Genesis, equipped with the latest and greatest hardware known to boykind, the Sega Channel. Now, 29 years later, he dusts off the Sega Genesis, now a PS5, and re-entered those hallowed halls once again. The ramparts of Guardiana, the waterways of Worrell, all the way to the gates of Runefaust. Join me as we re-examine what made this strategy role-playing classic so amazing and answer the ultimate question. Just how good was Shining Force really? 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 November 1990. Now, fresh off leaving Enix in April of 1990, Hiroyuki Takahashi was wrapping up work on his first game with the newly founded development team, Climax Entertainment. Titled Shining in the Darkness for the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive, the game was very much a traditional dungeon crawler with first-person combat in the vein of something like Dragon Quest or Phantasy Star. Shining in the Darkness was a significant success for Sega, leading to bigger and bigger dreams for the next chapter in the Shining series. Now, despite those solid sales numbers for Darkness, Sega set a rather paltry budget for the follow-up. Initially imagined as a Game Gear title, the scope quickly exceeded what was believed to be possible on the handheld. Enter round 2 on the Gear's bigger brother. Shining Force was released in Japan on March 20th, 1992, and in July 1993 in the States and Europe. It was very highly regarded upon its release. With scores in the mid-80s to the low 90s from most publications of the day, every aspect of Shining Force was praised. And even on the modern site Metacritic, it sits at an 84 based on only 4 reviews for the iPhone/iPad version. I would finally play it when it popped up on the Sega Channel circa mid-1995. Now, Shining Force also received a remake on the GBA in April 2004 called Shining Force Resurrection of the Dark Dragon. It was created by Amusement Vision, known for Super Monkey Ball and F-Zero AX. While it does have an enhanced story, better translation, more battles, more mechanics, and technically superior graphics, it is controversial for its alterations and contradictions to Shining Force 1's plot. And the art style is contentious to, say the least. Later re-released on the Virtual Console for Wii in 2007 and the Switch in 2021, I played it today via the Sega Genesis Classics Collection, which provides some excellent features such as quick save and rewind, which will, in fact, come in handy for those trying to play with just a little less frustration. Finally, a lot of my research was done via Shining Force Central, which I actually remember being around way back in the day, so shouts out to them. Once we started the development, I started to get greedy. I didn't want to do normal fight scenes. And those battle scenes, along with the stellar battle system, would leave the longest lasting imprint of the game's legacy. Inspired heavily by his experience with Dragon Quest and a little-known Japanese PC game called Silver Ghost, Hiroyuki and the Climax crew sought to create a faster-paced, strategic RPG with a massive and bold look. Now, straight up, for all the dope shit that's in this game, it's the combat that always drew me back in the day, and keeps me coming back to Shining Force all these years later. It really is an ideal starting point for those new to the SRPG genre. Revisiting the game for the first time in a minute, I was quickly reminded of its strategy system's simple yet addictive nature. There are really only two phases within the game: walking around towns and battles. No random battles to be found, so yay. The game is divided into 8 chapters with no backtracking, so make sure you thoroughly search the towns when you can, because you might not get the chance to return. And in those towns, you can walk around, chat it up with the town folks, buy new weapons, revive and cure fallen or ill party members, find new forest folk to join the fight, and much more. Now, most of that time will be spent checking in on your squad to ensure everyone is in tip-top condition and ready to rock, as I found it was actually pretty easy to forget someone died in combat once you go back to the story. And then when you re-enter combat, you realize you're down a couple peeps.
Okay, y'all.
My first complaint about this game. One of my biggest beefs returning to this game is the absolutely abysmal inventory and navigation systems. It's expected in an early 90s game for sure, but damn, does it suck. Like, quality of life stuff really matters in gaming, and we have come a long way. Each party member has only 4 slots for items, and as you purchase and pick up items, they just manifest in the first person's inventory slot. It basically comes down to opening your main character's inventory and siphoning shit off until he has enough space to even look in treasure chests. Rinse and repeat. You're gonna be doing this the whole damn game. And there are too many yes or no prompts for each and every selection in shops, in the field, etc. And there's also no way to quickly bulk buy anything. I know that might sound a little bit nitpicky, but in practice, this might be where this game feels its oldest. The exploration in the game could be more meaningful too, as most of the towns seem devoid of really unique landmarks outside of, a few key exceptions. This game also suffers a bit from the trademark 90s RPG syndrome, where people in these towns not only talk about you and your travails exclusively, but also have that uncanny magical insight into everything happening within the world. This night is evil. Or,
if you check in the forest, you'll find the magic stone that you need.
In general, this is where Shining Force also feels super outdated to a returning player. And if you're a more, savvy newcomer to the series with more modern sensibilities, this'll probably be a bummer. You just have to show up with the right expectations of a game of this age, as it was par for the course at the time. However, when I think about all my times playing Shining Force, the primary thing that pops into my head aren't exactly the areas you visit. They aren't the simplistic, dark, light story it tells, or the music even, though
that does slap in places.
It's the vast, super detailed battle scenes that felt larger than life to me back in 1995 and hold up oh so well today. Conceptually, the game was nearly 40 megs before being pared down to fit time and budget constraints. But even with the provided card space, the team works some damn blaze magic. This is absolute fire. Each player character and enemy sprite, meticulously crafted with beautiful pixel art, still looks fantastic even today. Now, I was hella impressed with the game's visual design. They were pushing the boundaries of what games could look like in that period. There are a lot of enemies too, each with super expressive sprite work. According to Hidehiro Yoshida, oh my god, those were so hard to make. But I'm glad we took the time to depict everything in such detail, because I think it makes it a lot easier for players to empathize with the characters and the story. And those characters and story are very memorable, if not, mad basic. Okay, we'll call it
Classic.
A Story of Dark vs. Light. You play as Max, a young swordsman who finds himself in a massive battle between good and evil. When he discovers that an ancient evil dragon is about to be revived by the wicked forces of Runefaust, the king sends Max on a crucial mission to the Gate of the Ancients. But when he returns to his hometown, he's met with disaster. His kingdom is in ruins. Both the king and Lord Varios are dead. With the help of May, Lord Varios' daughter, Max heads to Alterone. In Alterone, things go from bad to worse as Max is thrown into prison by Kane, a Runefaust general. Luckily, Chris, a kind-hearted healer, breaks him out. They continue their journey, eventually finding out that Kane has sailed away. They go to Monarena, where they recruit the king's daughter, Henri, who initially doesn't believe Max, but eventually joins them after some convincing. The team retrieves the Orb of Light from the Cave of Darkness, which helps them later. Next, they face a tricky situation in Rindo. They need a ship, but must first rescue the mayor's grandson from a monster-filled circus. After a tough fight, they get to the boat, but it's destroyed by Michela, a sorceress working for Runefaust. They press on to Shade Abbey, where they battle Dark Soul, who's trying to resurrect the Dark Dragon. They gain new allies, Balbaroy and Aemon, in the process. In Bustoke, the Shining Force uncovers that the town's men are working for Runefaust and must deal with a mentally poisoned wolf fella named Xylo. They defeat some monsters and get Xylo back to his old self. With Xylo now on their side, one of my favorite party members, they head to Powell Bridge, where they encounter and defeat Runefaust's new weapon, Laser Eye, and gain another ally, Pele. Things heat up as Max and his team find themselves caught in a bit of a mess in the town prompt. Max is wrongly accused of being a spy and is once again jailed, but he escapes with help and learns about the Tower of the Ancients. At the top of this tower, Dark Soul has just raised the castle of the Ancients. Kane, fighting alongside them now, dies trying to stop Dark Soul. Max retrieves the Sword of Darkness and creates the Chaos Breaker, setting the stage for our final showdown. In Runefaust, Max and his team confront Ramladu and use the Chaos Breaker to battle Dark Soul. It's a fierce fight, and Max ultimately defeats Dark Soul by sacrificing himself to reseal the Dark Dragon. The castle sinks with him inside, leaving the team to grieve his loss. But in the end credits, it's revealed that Max actually survived, washed up in a village, alive and well. I wanted to do something more like Dragon Quest, a dramatic tale full of tears of romance with a rich world and setting. Hiroyuki Takahashi. For the time, they mostly succeeded. One of my very first notes was that this story seems really elementary, and it is, but like many traditional tales, it tells the story clearly and with a heap of energy. It may not be the most complicated or captivating one. You might see the plot twist coming a mile away. You might be confused about how everyone is always in the right place, the right time. You may even roll your eyes at all the tropes, but there is something so pure about this game's narrative. It gives just enough color to the events unfolding, keeps you motivated to keep fighting.
I know, finally.
We can talk about the combat. This is the main reason that I love this game to this day. The depth and complexity of the battles were a major draw, and they remain a standout feature of Shining Force. It's just like the quintessential SRPG and set me up for many in the future, including classics like Final Fantasy Tactics, Jeanne d'Arc, Fire Emblem Three Houses, and many others. You start with a relatively small party. In each chapter, you collect new party members in largely convenient ways, but fuck it. As long as they have dope battle sprites, I'm good. By the end of the game, there are nearly 30 characters at your base, and you field your team of 12 from this roster. Each character has their own class, which can be anything from magic users to archers to literal ninja. As you enter battle maps, the characters do not work in phases. They take turns based primarily on their agility stat, so you never quite know how things will play out, keeping you on your toes. The team at Climax mentioned that they really did not like slow-moving strategy games, so their goal was to keep the whole thing pushing. Yoshinori Tagawa, an experienced battle planner, explains. For the battle calculations, the first thing the monsters do is figure out who they're facing, then what action they should take. But unlike a normal war simulation game, the possible numbers of actions, when you consider things like spells and items, is very complex. The goal was to do this all within 1 second. Now I ain't gonna lie, guys. The AI in this game is dog shit dumb. I was often surprised as I'd enter their general area by just how little action they would actually take. They will target your main character, Max, and if he dies, it's back to the church with half your coins. So it's not uncommon for him to fall behind in levels, as some players will keep him in the back. But the AI is fine enough, as the real fun is in the offensive phase. The best defense is a good offense, am I right? Like, finding the perfect party balance is an art in Shining Force, and deploying your best units in that ideal symphony of action and reaction always feels so damn good. Using basic stats such as HP, MP, attack, and defense, the game takes combat quite far. Mages gain new spell loadouts unique to them, combat characters develop at different rates, and all of this is RNG'd within a certain range. There are many guides out there of who has their best stat growth at which level, which I actually found quite helpful. Now, when you enter in the range of an op, you can go ahead and select from 4 options: attack, magic, items, or weight. Powerful strikers like Gunks will smash through foes' lines with up-close lances or throwing spears. Archers largely suck in this game, but can be helpful in a pinch for range. As mages, AoE spells really feel fantastic to land when opponents bunch up. Each class can utilize different weapons, and while there are accessories, there is no armor. And those classes can also be promoted one time for each character, like a warrior can become a gladiator, which causes a significant increase in their strength. These promotions not only lead to better stat growth over time, though you do take a slight hit at the point of promotion, but also a really cool new sprite with new attack and defense animations. Combat is fun, swift, and really close to the perfect execution of this idea. My only beef is the number of whiffs that your characters will often take, so the rewind feature on the Sega collection did actually come in handy, so I didn't become too frustrated with lousy RNG. Pro tip, if you rewind to right before you make your selection, it re-rolls your chance of landing / missing / criticaling, so I did this pretty often. The game isn't particularly challenging, but it does get annoying sometimes if you continuously miss for, no apparent reason. If you play this game in the modern day, just know you're here truly for the combat, both the look and the feel. Everything is excellent, from the map design to the balancing and how that balance can and should be broken. Now, y'all, I love an SRPG that rewards intimate knowledge of its systems, and after a few playthroughs, you'll really have a feel for how to tip the balance in your favor. My favorite units this time around were definitely Gunts, the Steam Knight, Musashi, the Samurai, Hanzu, the Ninja, and my boy Arthur, cause I held off to promote him, and his magic / paladin combo is so fucking sick if you do it right. Like, straight up, this game is a masterclass. Mad satisfying. We all know the graphics in battle
Slap.
and out of battle, they're, pretty decent. Hiroyuki stated that he was a massive fan of classic King Arthur and staple fantasy worlds, which was reflected in the game's design. There are mountains, forests, castles, and cathedrals. The game does have some unique areas, including almost futuristic maps with laser weapons and other machinery. It's clearly high fantasy though, and really does look pretty damn beautiful. I love it when an RPG has big, expressive character art, and this game does it very well. If you see a character art pop up, you can probably recruit them or you're gonna fight them, so keep that in mind. Y'all might be surprised to know that when I commissioned my current pick for all my profiles, it was based 100% on Shining Force. Yes, sir. I am a real fan. Anyway, while the menu system itself is clunky, the UI and design look fantastic and have a unique feel that I still don't think has been completely replicated. Shining Force has its own swag, that's for sure. The sound effects in Shining Force are low-key iconic, and some of the music is too, though it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. It may be nostalgia working me up, but something about that battle tune as you begin a combat phase gets me going every damn time. I do wish that the overall battle theme didn't restart after every single attack, but besides that, I do enjoy the music quite a bit. Masahiko Yoshimura was the composer of both Shining in the Darkness and the original Shining Force, but looks like that's really about it. Info about his overall discography is strangely tricky to track down, but after poking around the VGMO forums, I came across his SoundCloud, listed now under Brain Brown. He was dropping heat as recently as 4 years ago. Pretty cool profile pic, but I digress.
Egress?
Nah, digress. The soundtrack to this game has some incredible high points and a decent bit of solid, though largely unremarkable music. The prologue tune has this beautiful, almost haunting melodic line placed against an accompanying ARP and a bass note that sits cleanly on the one. There's something special about this track to me, and it just really triggers my memories of that first time sitting down at my Genesis to fire this game up. The primary city theme is where the music gets just a touch forgettable for me. It's not bad by any means, but it's not to the iconic level of some of its contemporaries. It just meanders a bit too much for my personal taste. I do love the castle theme though. The way the snares roll in this almost like Indian counter melody that creeps in every 8 bars blend beautifully with the clean top melody and catchy chord progressions tied together with a high set bass tone. I did notice the bass lines of the soundtrack are really simple with very sparse hits to fill out roughly that area of the frequency spectrum and not too much more than that in most cases. Sorrowful music in this game goes hard as shit though, as I believe the After City Destruction theme and the Sad Event music showcase. The City Destruction theme smartly takes the ho-hum tune from the standard City theme and reimagines it through a minor key lens with much darker tones. I love the walk down of the synth that meets up with the bass buzz. This section of the music reminds me a lot of Yuzo Koshiro's work on the first Streets of Rage. The early era of Genesis music really had a certain vibe and feel to it. Now, the hardest battle theme definitely goes to the ship deck. I love the syncopated drum pattern and how the snare almost flams. It has a really organic bounce to it. The soaring synth lines are powerful, giving a feel of overcoming as enemies flood and overwhelm your seafaring vessel. Ultimately, though, I went with the song A Holy War. And took the high energy track in a bit more of a lo-fi direction. Titled Let's Fight, I hope you've enjoyed it in the background. I'll let it ride out for about 8 bars. And if you dig it, give me a shining down in the comments below. And I'll bring it out to my Bandcamp. Now, as far as the sound effects go, the menu chimes, the clash of attacks, the sound of magic being cast, it really strikes that perfect tone. It's seriously peak JRPG stuff for me. Shining Force is special. It's a simple game with a mega basic storyline. Some of the esoteric components make it a chore to play these days. Despite having its share of bangers, the soundtrack can't compete with some of the greats, even on its own console. But you know what? 8-year-old me loved Shining Force, and over 29 years later, I still feel that joy and wonder that I remember as just a boy, sitting in front of our 13-inch barely colored CRT, holding that 3-button beam. And after 18 more hours with the incubator of my RPG fascination, I appreciate everything Shining Force stands for in my gaming life, even more. A brilliant game with some cobwebs forming in the corners and a thin sheen of dust settling atop, but still just as beautiful and vibrant as any game of the era. Shining Force is absolutely worth reviewing. And if you've made it this far, I'd love to hear your memories of this incredible game down below in the comments. Thanks for tuning in to this very first episode of Review. If you dig this content, be sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe, and let me know what other classic Genesis games you'd like for me to revisit. On that note, I'm about to get out of here, so y'all be good, all right? Peace.